My sister talked my parents into signing their house over to her and then laughed. I thought, now you have nowhere to live. She thought she had one, until the lawyer smiled and said actually that house was never theirs to give. When she found out who really owned it, she was shocked and fell apart. I was standing in my parents' living room, staring at my sister as she smirked at me. She had her arms crossed, her head tilted, and that annoying little smile on her face. She always looked like that when she thought she had won. Well, she said slowly, like she was enjoying it. Looks like you're out of luck. Mom and Dad signed the house over to me this morning. It's mine now. I felt like the ground had been pulled out from under me. This was my childhood home, where I took my first steps, where we celebrated birthdays, where I stayed up late talking to my mom in the kitchen. And now my sister was looking right at me, bragging that she owned it and that I had nowhere to live. She even laughed, a loud, proud laugh. You should have been smarter, she said. You should have known better. I couldn't believe it. I turned to my parents, looking for an explanation or some kind of denial. But my mom wouldn't look at me. My dad just sighed and rubbed his head, avoiding my eyes. They knew what they had done, and they had done it on purpose. I clenched my fists. Why would you do this? My voice was shaking, but I didn't care. Why would you give her the house? You know I live here. You know I've been the one taking care of everything. My mom finally looked at me, but there was no guilt in her eyes, just tiredness. She's family, she said. She's my family too, I snapped. That's my house as much as it is yours. My sister laughed. Was, she corrected, not anymore. I had worked so hard to keep this house going. When my dad got sick, I was the one who drove him to his appointments. When my mom couldn't pay the bills, I stepped in. I had spent my time, my money, and my energy keeping this place together. And now my sister, who had never done anything for anyone but herself, had taken it from me. I gritted my teeth. This isn't over, I said. She just rolled her eyes. Oh, it is. Legally, the house is mine now. You can't do anything about it. And honestly, I think it's time you found your own place. You're almost 40, right? It's sad that you're still living here. My hands were shaking. I could barely breathe. She had no idea what she had just done. And she had no idea what was coming for her. Because what she didn't know, what none of them had even checked, was that this house was never really theirs to give. And the moment the lawyer smiled, I knew I had already won. I didn't argue anymore. I didn't yell or demand answers. I just stood there, staring at my sister as she grinned like she had won some big battle. Because she thought she had. She thought she'd have played the perfect game, that she had tricked our parents and beaten me to take the one thing that mattered most. She had no idea what she had really done. I took a deep breath. Okay, I said, my voice calm. If that's how you want to play this. Her smile faded for a second, but she quickly covered it up. Oh, it's not about how I want to play, she said. The paperwork is already done. You can complain all you want, but you can't change legal ownership. She really thought she had me trapped. I turned around and left. I didn't slam the door. I didn't storm out in anger. I just walked out, got in my car, and drove straight to my lawyer's office. Because while my sister had spent months planning, she had made one huge mistake. She hadn't checked who really owned the house. My lawyer, Mr. Reynolds, was an older man who had seen it all. When I told him what had happened, he leaned back in his chair and folded his hands over his stomach. Let me get this straight, he said. Your parents signed the house over to your sister. I nodded. This morning. And I think they have the legal right to do that. I nodded again. That's when Mr. Reynolds smiled, a slow, knowing smile that told me I was about to win. Actually, he said, tapping his pen on the desk, that house was never theirs to give. A chill went down my spine. What do you mean? He opened his drawer, pulled out a thick folder, and dropped it on the desk in front of me. You want to know who really owns that house? I stared at him, my heart racing. He opened the file and pointed to a document. You do. I blinked. What? Your grandfather left it to you in his will, he said, sliding the paperwork closer. Legally, that house has been yours since he passed away. Your parents never owned it. They had the right to live there, but they never had the right to give it away. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. All these years, I had thought my parents owned the house. I had never even thought to check the deed. I had just trusted that things were the way they seemed. But my grandfather, who had always liked me more than my sister and had seen what kind of person she was, had left the house to me. And my sister had no idea. I let out a slow breath. So what happens now? Mr. Reynolds' smile grew. Now? Now we have some fun. Your sister's world is about to fall apart. I didn't go home that night. Instead, I stayed at a friend's place and let my lawyer handle everything. The next morning, he filed an official order to stop my sister from making any changes to the property. That meant no selling, no fixing it up, no moving in. And that's when she finally called me. I didn't answer the first 3 times. On the 4th call, I picked up. What the hell did you do? She screamed. I leaned back in my chair. What do you mean? She was furious. The lawyer just called me. He said I can't touch the house. He said it's not mine. I let the silence hang for a moment to make her nervous. Then I said, that's because it never was. She went quiet. You really should have checked who owned the house before you tried your little trick. I said, because legally, that house has been mine for years. No, she whispered. That's not possible. Oh, it is. I have the papers to prove it. Grandpa left it to me, not Mom and Dad, and definitely not you. She gasped. I could almost hear her mind racing. No, that's a lie. That's not true. Mom and Dad. They didn't own it. I cut in. They thought they did, but they were wrong. I heard a small gasp on the other end. I wasn't sure if it was from shock or anger. Now, I said, my voice calm, you have 2 choices. 1, you admit you messed up, back off, and we pretend this never happened. Or 2, I paused, you push your luck, and we take this to court. You wouldn't, she whispered. I laughed. Oh, I absolutely would. And trust me, if this goes to court, you're going to lose. For the first time in her life, my sister had nothing to say. She had spent so long playing her little games, turning people against each other, tricking our parents into giving her what she wanted. And now she was realizing she had lost before she even started. The next morning, she showed up at my lawyer's office. She stormed in, red-faced and angry, demanding that something be done. She yelled, she threatened. She even tried to say I had stolen the house. Mr. Reynolds, my lawyer, just sat there calmly, letting her dig her own hole. When she finally stopped ranting, he leaned forward, tapped the legal papers on his desk, and said, I'd suggest you leave before you embarrass yourself even more. That's when it happened. She collapsed into the chair, her face turning pale. For the first time ever, she looked defeated. This isn't fair, she whispered. I crossed my arms. Trying to steal a house from your own brother isn't fair either. She looked up at me, tears in her eyes. But I already told people the house was mine. I made plans. I tilted my head. That sounds like a you problem. She opened her mouth but couldn't say anything. That's when I knew she finally realized it. She had lost. For a few days, my sister stayed quiet. No calls, no texts, nothing. I thought maybe, just maybe, she had accepted defeat. But I should have known better. People like her don't just give up. They find new ways to cause trouble. And my sister. She was about to sink lower than I ever imagined. It started with my parents. They showed up at my house early one morning, knocking like they still owned the place. I thought about ignoring them, but I knew they wouldn't leave. So I opened the door. My mom looked at me like I had betrayed her. How could you do this to your sister? I laughed dryly. Are you serious? She's family, my dad said, shaking his head. You're really going to kick her out over some technicality? I stared at them, trying to understand how they could say something so ridiculous. A technicality, I repeated. She tried to steal my house. She didn't steal it, my mom snapped. We gave it to her. And you never had the right to give it away, I shot back. Do you even hear yourselves? You tried to give away something that wasn't yours. They didn't respond because, deep down, they knew I was right. But then my mom tried another approach. She softened her voice, sighed like she was the victim, and said, Look, your sister made a mistake, okay? But you don't have to punish her for it. Just let her stay. I almost laughed in her face. Let her stay, I repeated. In my house? Yes, my dad said, crossing his arms. It's not like you're married or have kids. You don't need all this space. Oh, so that's what this was. They had decided I didn't deserve the house. That my sister, their favorite, needed it more than I did. And they expected me to just let it happen. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. Let me make something very clear. She is never setting foot in this house again. And neither are you. I went to court with my lawyer, completely calm. My sister showed up looking smug, like she was sure the judge would side with her. For the first 5 minutes, she put on a good act. She talked about how our parents had given her the house, how I was refusing to leave, and how I was being difficult out of spite. The judge listened quietly. Then my lawyer stood up and laid out the facts. He showed the real deed to the house, proving I had owned it for years. He showed my grandfather's will, which left the house only to me. And then he dropped the bombshell. He showed the fake eviction notice my sister had filed. The judge did not like that. She turned to my sister, her face serious. Miss, do you know that falsifying legal documents is a serious crime? My sister's smirk disappeared. She turned pale. You filed an eviction notice against the legal owner of the house, the judge continued. That's fraud. My sister stammered, looking at my parents for help. But for the first time, even they couldn't save her. She had lost again. But this time, she wasn't just losing the house. She was about to lose everything. The courtroom was silent. My sister looked like she was about to faint. My parents sat frozen behind her, their faces white. The judge tapped her pen on the desk. Miss, you knowingly filed false legal documents to try to remove the rightful owner from their home. That's a criminal offense. My sister opened her mouth but couldn't speak. The judge continued, I'm ruling in favor of the defendant. The house legally belongs to him. Also, I'm referring this case for possible charges of fraud and perjury. That was it. That was the moment everything fell apart for her. She turned to me, her eyes wide with fear. You wouldn't let them charge me, right? I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed. Why shouldn't I? Tears filled her eyes. I didn't mean. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I tilted my head. You laughed in my face when you thought you won. You told me I had nowhere to live. She went silent because she knew I was right. The judge finalized the ruling, throwing out my sister's fake case and making it clear she would be investigated. But I wasn't done. My parents get what they deserve. After court, my parents cornered me outside. My mom looked at me with tears in her eyes. You can't do this to her. I scoffed. She did it to herself. She's facing fraud charges. My dad snapped. And whose fault is that? I shot back. I didn't tell her to forge legal documents. I didn't tell her to try to steal from me. That was her choice. But she's your sister, my mom pleaded. I clenched my jaw. And I'm your son. But that didn't stop you from trying to kick me out of my own house, did it? They had nothing to say to that. So I hit them with the final blow. You know what? Since you're so worried about her, why don't you take her in? I said, tilting my head, because she's definitely not coming back to my house. My mom gasped. You wouldn't. Oh, I would. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my notes. In fact, I already had my lawyer write up a formal eviction notice for both of you. My dad's face turned red. You can't evict your own parents. Why not? I shot back. You didn't seem to have a problem trying to do it to me. Silence. My mom started crying, shaking her head. Where will we go? I shrugged. That's not my problem. Because the truth was, they had made their choice. They had chosen my sister over me. They had tried to take my home. And now they had nothing. The eviction went through. My parents tried to fight it, but they had no legal ground. They packed up their things and left, dragging my sister with them. They ended up in a small apartment on the other side of town, far from the nice, big house they thought they'd live in forever. As for my sister, she was charged with fraud. The court didn't go easy on her. She got a big fine and a criminal record. And the best part? That perfect image she had built for herself, the one she used to manipulate everyone, was gone. No more bragging about her big win. No more looking down on me. Now when people talked about her, it wasn't about how smart or clever she was. It was about how she tried to steal from her own brother and failed miserably. I still live in my house. My house. It's quiet now. Peaceful. No more fights. No more betrayals. Just me, finally enjoying what was always meant to be mine. And my parents, my sister, I don't hear from them much these days. But every now and then, I get updates. I hear my sister is struggling to find work because of her criminal record, that my parents regret choosing her over me, that they whisper about how they lost everything. And you know what? I don't feel bad. Not even a little. Because they tried to ruin my life. And all they did was ruin their own.